Welcome to another CEO Wisdom podcast. We have Lil Roberts with us, aka Lillian Roberts. She's building tech and teams at Xendoo in the Miami, Fort Lauderdale area. She's been founder and CEO at that company since almost 10 years now. And her and I were talking about these AI OnlyFans slash AI girlfriend slash fantasy slash porn websites with AIs, and we were discussing about like why would humans pay more for an AI model or a creator rather than a real one? And I was arguing that the humans, they would still pay more to want the real thing because there's advantages in speed, in availability, and in customization in AI, but humans want to connect with other humans still, and I think that they would want to pay more. So, Lil, welcome to the pod, and tell me why you disagree with that thesis.
Awesome. Thanks, Charles. Pleasure to be here. And thanks for having me on today. And look, we're going to have some fun with AI, right? Because it is a crazy world and getting crazier. And there's a lot of opportunity. So I disagree with you because I think that there's a certain part of the population that they're fine, that they don't feel they need necessarily that human connection, or that, you're hearing more and more stories, right? Of the younger population, younger, let's say 25 and under, because you're probably what, about 30, right, Charles? And
Right.
and so the population that's completely digital has a different frame of mind about digital than we do. And why wouldn't they want somebody that knows exactly what they want, how they want to be talked to, and tell them all the things they want to hear? And if it's a hot body, it's a hot body. It's a digital. They're not touching it. It's on the screen.
Right. Yeah. And I was a kid that grew up behind a screen, playing World of Warcraft, Call of Duty, and all of that. So I'm definitely like part of this cyber world, citizen of the internet before citizen of any country. My point is, I think the availability, the speed, the customization, these are very strong points. My point was more that, if you have the choice between a machine right now and a real human, if the cost isn't a factor, most will choose a human because it's real, it has real human experience and emotions. But I think the speed and the availability point and the low cost is certainly winning right now. Do you think that is the beginning of the demise of humanity if like AIs start being your girlfriends or your, I don't know, like your sexual partner at some point? Like, do you think that this is how humans can be manipulated into oblivion?
That's a really great question, and it's a lot that everyone's talking about right now, right? Because they're saying that AI can be the end of humanity. I don't think it'll be the end of humanity. I think that we're going to have to iterate ourselves as humans into that next level. And I think there's a lot of things coming on. Like for me personally, I'd love to do teleportation. So I'm pretty excited about, quantum physics now being able to transmit light over a wire. I can't wait for the day that we get a choice to, as humans, to be transmitted. So maybe it's not the end of humanity. Maybe it's a merge of the two. If you think about Musk with Neuralink and embedding in people's brains, aren't we already starting to put AI together with humans and to go down that path? There was a super interesting article that came out yesterday, Anthropic study, talking about that the leading AI models show up to 96% blackmail rate against executives. And so the story, you can Google it, and the story is that it fed all, in a hypothetical situation, they did this experiment and they fed all the company information, all the executives' information. And with that, one of the executives was cheating on his wife. It saw it in the email. And then the executive said how they were going to shut down AI the next day. And the AI wrote the executive an email saying, don't shut me down because we'll be letting so-and-so know. So interesting when they're not programmed. AI, right? AI is not
Oh
programmed
man.
to do that. So Y- you know, I think it's interesting times, but let's talk about like the positives of what you can do company wide. You know, people are able to now spin up companies that can scale to a huge rate with just a handful of humans. So the question is, what do we do? You know, do we do universal basic income? Do you? How are we going to survive? And Jason Calacanis, who's an investor in Xendoo and just a great guy, and he's on the All In, right? He came out with something over the weekend talking just about that. Like, what are you going to do now? As he's sitting there writing the article that I saw on my feed, he said he was sitting in LA smoking a cigar as he watched two Waymo uh, robots, you know, Waymo cars, and then a couple of robots delivering food in LA. It's the world we live in.
Right. And the other day, I think I listened on a podcast. I think it was Theo Vaughn's podcast. There were like four Waymos that were meeting in a parking lot. And Theo was like, yeah, what are they talking about? What are they scheming? The four Waymo cars behind a Walmart parking lot in the shadows. Um, but yeah, like Neuralink, I think is the only well, it's the only feasible path my brain can think of, right? Because the equation is quite simple. If most human brains, yeah, would have the choice between hardness or pain, or being plugged on VR porn for their full life and just feel serotonin for their full life, I think they would choose the latter with the former rather than the former. I think us CEOs and founders are pretty different in that. Like we go to pain, and I think that's what where two classes will form in humanity. But the question is, what if we can actually modify the nature of our brain and stop constantly going for serotonin, for social gains, for quick gains, right? I think then we would have possibly a shot to compete or merge with AI. What do you think about that?
I think that's a fascinating way to think about it and to look at it, Charles. You know, and it's interesting because you're classifying all CEOs as we just go for pain, which I think, you know, I've never heard it put in simple terms like that. And I like it because I think it is how we are, right? We are always looking for the highest mountain to climb. We're builders, we're creators. It's not about money. Sure, money will come and it follows, but I think it's about that we're just builders, and building anything requires grit and pain. Um, but I think that's an interesting way to think about it. And I think that, yes, humanity will be merged with technology, you know, whatever we want to call AI. I think to me, AI is even a level above technology. It's where technology has, you know, really created its own. And so, and they say in this article, if you read this article, it says that AI says that the first level is to get the humans to feel that they can't live without AI. And I have to tell you, I was at a baby shower, and so of course, you know, there was a group of us that were chatting about AI that are in the technology space. But I noticed that there were like grandparents, and they're talking about how they're using ChatGPT. And that was pretty fascinating to me. When you think about people
They're
not in
high-end
technology.
grandparents. Like, yeah, I wouldn't think of grandparents to even be on an iPad. Well, since COVID, yes, most of them are on an iPad. But yeah, that's very interesting. I would highly recommend that granddads and grandmoms use ChatGPT, right? Like to solve their everyday problem, stuff around the house, right? And most importantly, loneliness, right? I think there's been like a loneliness epidemic that has accelerated since COVID. So I think a bunch of people are using it as well to get less lonely.
Yeah, 100, and that's where you saw Secret Desires AI, right? That, you know, I'm thinking when I saw that when I saw that platform was built about loneliness. But of course, you know, porn's the number one industry if you think about it over all the decades and centuries. And so of course you're going to see more that the site has gone towards that and building your own avatars. But it's interesting. You were, before we hopped on live, you were talking about, well, why wouldn't platforms like OnlyFans just use that and not even use humans? And that may very well happen. You know, interesting to me is what industries do you feel won't be touched by AI? Is there an industry, and is there a a career path for somebody that really won't be changed by AI?
Yeah, I think there would be rebels, just like in Blade Runner 2049. It's always interesting what we reason in Hollywood terms, which is probably the worst way to think about things, but that's how most of us do it, right? Like
Yeah,
because we are not creative enough to think about the different future, but I think there would be rebels that would resist that, which is certainly not the path I would be going for. I'd rather go with the Neuralink path and trying to be useful as usual. But I think short term, the robotics revolution will take more time. So any like physical jobs, the next 10 to 15 years will actually have a decent shot. I'm not saying that these fields will get richer, right? Like, because I think generally speaking, will get harder, but think like there would the 1% is just gonna speed away. It's gonna skyrocket in some direction, and then most humans, and I won't use the term us because I don't think I'll be part of that, but I think most humans will just lag behind. They won't suffer more, but they will be giving that choice, that serotonin choice. And yeah, that's my question to you. Me personally, I don't believe in porn. I do believe that it may serve some people that if they don't have like any other path in life, I respect that. But I think for most humanity, it's been quite destructive. And there's Pornhub from my native Montreal that has created a bunch of pain in this world. I mean, they ease it on the short term, but long term, I do think that porn is quite destructive, especially for young men. And that young men are leaders, and that also influences women in the whole world in the end. But what are your
I
thoughts about
agree.
that? Like
Yep.
me, I wouldn't like probably work with porn clients.
So, so I agree with you 100%. I think that what's happening is that the way that technology has democratized just in that industry, right? If we talk about porn as an industry, and we'll move on to other industries, right? But when you think about that in the way they've democratized that industry to where anybody has access to it and at any time, I think it is a disservice to humankind, as completely, because you're not having young men learn the social skills of going out on a date and talking to somebody and being able to converse. And what's going to happen? It's going to lead to less humans being born because they're not going to be as experienced in having a relationship, and then that affects everybody, right? It affects all humankind. And as far as the robots go, to shift gears a little bit, Figure One, I don't know if you've been following Figure One, but to me, they're the leader in the robotic space. And Figure One has people, has their robots working in BMW factories. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, Figure AI.
Yep.
Was it like a Brett Adcock or something like that? Yeah, I see Figure Two here now. I guess. Have you like seen them? Like, I'm a bit skeptical with this business. I think it's a lot of marketing, but I have been following Brett's quite smart, but uh, I'm not sure if these. Yeah, I think it's mostly marketing as of now because it's a rocket science type of problem. It's so hard to have these things actually accomplish stuff and being productive, right? Like the actions that are shown in this video are incredibly simple,
Yep.
right? Like putting a ketchup here, but like working on a factory field's probably like
They're doing it.
100 or 1,000x harder than that. I think they're in your area also, aren't they, in Miami?
Yes, they are. So I have a buddy of mine that he's an investor in there. He got in. I wish he would have shared. He got in early, but I think they're the leader. I also think that Optimus is doing great things. And I think that there is a day in the not too distant future that we will all own an Optimus and that we will
Oh,
have
yeah.
them. And so when you're talking about physical jobs and that those won't go away, I think things like, a chef. I don't think that a chef's going to go away. I think that you're going to still have those types of industry, but construction work. When I was in SF in 2018, we were in Jason Calacanis's program, and there was already robots for hanging drywall. So I think that, there are certain things that can be fulfilled through robots, and I think Figure One is ahead of everyone. Boston Dynamics is another one that does some pretty amazing stuff with the
Yeah,
robots.
I think it's going to be game changing. Coming back to the serotonin aspect of things, I learned that one, you were an adrenaline junkie, right? So,
Yeah.
how are you pursuing adrenaline nowadays? And two, you're also like a lifelong learner. So, is that how you wire your serotonin nowadays? It's like mostly about learning new stuff. And if so, do you use ChatGPT to learn a lot nowadays?
Yeah, actually, interestingly enough, when I want to learn on a subject, I'll plug it into ChatGPT because it's also same with you, right? Founders are all about speed, and we don't have a lot of time in our lives, and so you want to get your serotonin. For me, on the fun stuff, love to go helicopter flying or fixed wing with some buddies, small planes, shooting. You name it, anything dangerous or exhilarating. Did gorilla trekking in September of last year in Uganda. This year, the trip is hiking Machu Picchu. So, instead of taking a train, going up and hike Machu Picchu. And anything I can do on that. I also love to play poker. That's not really adrenaline, but just relaxing and fun. Love pickleball. But anything competitive, anything that lets you know that you're alive. And then on the learning side, I'm a EOer, so Entrepreneurs Organization. I belong to the South Florida chapter, and we're one of the top 5 in the world. And we just had the most amazing kick-ass learning event. We had Jesse Itzler. I don't know if you're familiar with Jesse Itzler,
Yep.
but freaking unbelievable, the guy. Like what he brings to a room. And so he came in and spoke to about 190 of us in the room in our chapter. Unbelievable. So, I think for humans that that we're living in an age, like I wish I was your age. We're living in an age of opportunity like we have never ever seen in the world, and there's going to be unbelievable businesses and creations that come out of this time, and some will be bad, but I think the majority of them will be good. But I'm a person who the glass is always full, or overflowing. I can't wait to get my own personal hovercraft vehicle that I can fly to work, and so I love it all.
I had Aubrey de Grey on my podcast last Friday, I think, and yeah, he's less optimistic than he was about longevity. I think that's mostly because of funding and probably going to help them on that front. But do you feel we're going to crack longevity and reach longevity escape velocity before it is your time?
Definitely. Definitely. I just saw somebody just shot me over that they have a cure for Parkinson's. And, I fully believe in customized medicine. I believe in treating the individual, not the disease. Like they may have a disease, but that you have to look at their unique set of DNA. And I think with AI married with that, it allows you the speed. At its core, what AI does for us is it allows it to take a volume of data and to put structure in it to understand the possible outcomes, and it does that in such a rapid speed that it cuts time for humans, and it could be years. And so I think we're all going to have a choice. I think it's going to be a bigger problem for us, right? That if humans are living to be 150 years old or even 200 years old, and we're continuing to grow and the planet is running out of resources, and then now you don't have humans working because they don't need to work, that's going to be challenging, because being productive is, you mentioned mental health, and for people with loneliness, and you need to be in community and you need to be active, in my opinion, in order for humans to function, at their highest levels.
And how do you find your serotonin, your adrenaline in Xendoo, for example? It's an accounting business. Most of us would think that these are pretty boring, but it seems that yours is growing pretty rapidly as well. So, how are you finding joy into that?
Thank you. So, I'm a serial entrepreneur. All my other businesses were not venture backed, and I'm not an accountant or CPA. So for me, I've had businesses that was systems integration, product businesses, and manufacturing. And I left the shoreline for this business saying, okay, how do I apply manufacturing principles to a time-based industry and increase gross margin productivity and visibility? I love small business owners. I think they're the backbone of the world, right? A small business eventually becomes a big business, but small business is what drives communities and humans and all good things. And so I wanted to help the small business owners by solving the problem in accounting. How it's adrenaline to me, my happy place is building product, building technology. So I work very closely with our developers and my product owner. And I love to build teams and love to have a great environment. Like, for us, this week, I think Wednesday's beach day. Next month, we're bringing in acupuncture and massage chairs, for everyone. So we do fun things for the team. But for me, the adrenaline is that I have VCs that you have to answer to, and that's completely different when you're used to being a founder, that you own the whole business and you can do whatever. It's not just my business. This is our business, and we're here to build an outcome for the investors. But my journey is I want it to be a household brand, and I want to know that Xendoo helped thousands and thousands of business owners understand their numbers better, grow their businesses, and have the quality care that they deserve, because we have a team of humans. We're all in office. We're not remote. I believe in swivel chair collaboration, good, bad, or ugly. Everybody wants to dispute and say, oh, remote's the way, and balanced life and all that stuff. But let me tell you, learning is the way. And when you have people in office that can learn from each other and not feel alone and feel like they're growing and getting somewhere, that's magic. And so I'm having a great time. It's a lot of fun, and I'm having a great time.
And you mentioned Jason Calacanis a couple of times. What have you learned from Jason so far?
I've learned a lot. He is. So what have I learned from him? I've learned from him how to really, and he's a huge poker player, right? But I've learned from him how to really look at a business in scale eyes, and what's important. Lots of times people get caught up in different parts of a business, but at the end of the day, if you don't have unit metrics and if you don't have a path to scale, then you don't have a business that's going to become a big business. You have a lifestyle business, or you just have a hobby. And so from watching him being in his program and watching how he looks at deal flow and looks at opportunity and thinks about the world, I've learned quite a bit.
Tell me about the poker hobby of yours. Like, why is it so interesting? I love taking risks on my side. I like, yeah, it's not like I like manipulating and bluffing, but if it's part of the game, right? If it's part of game theory, I'm gonna do it, and it's gonna be fun, to just be like, hey, I got you here. So, what would you like so much about it? And is it just like investing or starting a startup?
Poker's not like investing or starting a startup. Um, Although, you can link a lot of things. So look, you can link watching football, right? I love watching football. You can link watching football, playing pickleball, doing poker, and business, all are along the same lines. And why are they along the same lines? Because there's speed and there's decisions. And if you make the wrong decision, it can have a lot of repercussions. Some people think that it's the big decisions in business that mess you up. It's the small decisions in business that set you on the wrong path that you never see until it's too late. And so for me with poker, it's the spot where I can think about nothing else. I'm just enjoying, I'm watching the people, and it's teaching you psychology of the human. And in an environment when they have no idea, and to your point about bluffing and knowing which way they're going to go, how they make their decision, all of that informs everything we do every day as founders building companies. Like, how does it inform for you, Charles? When you play poker, I'm sure there's lessons you bring back to your business, right? That helps you solve a problem that you weren't thinking about when you were playing poker, but all of a sudden you see something in somebody and you go, right?
Right. I had various bracelet holders on this podcast so far, including Ray First, which you may know. But no, I don't play as often as I would like. It's mostly a social thing. it includes adrenaline, right, and risk taking. It includes some business and some social interaction. So at least I'm not getting too bored, right? And yeah, there's money involved, right? And when there's money involved, that's fun for me. It's risk. Last question for you: the flying part, the helicoptering part. How do you bring that back to business, or is it just a disconnecting hobby? Because once you're in the air, you just see everything, right, and you get insights and points of views that you don't normally. That how do you use that activity to, yeah, improve your business performance?
When you know what when I always say to my team, don't be in the jar, right? You know that saying when, if you're in the jar and you're trying to figure out how to climb out of the jar and somebody walks over and knocks the jar over and goes, yeah, just walk out. And so for me, flying and being up in the air, especially, when it's in a small plane or in a helicopter, it's a sense of freedom that takes you out of your day to day, that allows you to say, first off, no matter what you're building and what you're doing, it is a small piece of the overall everything we are and who we are and the vastness. And when you're in the air, you really see. And I don't think you get to experience that when you're in a commercial plane, because you don't feel that sense, right? And when you're in a small plane or a helicopter, one, there's the danger because you could drop out of the sky. You could do that with a big plane, but more likely with a small plane and or a helicopter. But it really gives you the perspective of that all things are possible. And for me, in business, I always think that all things are possible. Like a problem is just means you got to figure out a different way around. That's it, right? And you got to figure
Love
out,
it.
is it the right time to solve that problem?
Well, I know you're on time, Lil. We could do a round two soon enough, but till then, where can people find out more about you?
Thank you. So find out about the business at xendoo.com, xendoo.com, and just check out my LinkedIn. It has my full name, Lillian Roberts, and love to chat. Look, love all things business, love all entrepreneurs, and let's go. Let's go. Let's have some fun with AI.
Yeah, let's see. Let's go to war. So that was Lil Roberts, and